Good evening again. Oh, I haven't started yet. Good evening. This is Dr. Yvette Mitchell. We're glad to welcome with us. This live podcast is called Fostering Lives, where we focus on the needs of children. And we're working on a special podcast right now where we're specifically talking about raising our grandchildren again. Um, And last week we focused on what our actual feelings are about that, and the feeling of maybe some anxiety, the feeling of maybe some anger towards our biological children when we're faced with feeling with raising our child again. And we're going to talk about several areas, but this week I want to focus on the financial burden. As a retired person, we kind of set our monies aside, anticipating for what we'll need for our child or our retirement. And now all of a sudden, we have this child or children, and it negatively our impacts greatly impacts our ability to move forward because children today are expensive. Used to be a time when we could give them peanut butter or jelly or a little something to eat, and clothing them wasn't very expensive. But today, even sneakers, a shirt, a piece of bread is expensive. So we have to really recalculate what we're doing with our children, and we have to calculate what we're doing with our monies because now these children they greatly impact us. Sometimes we have to find ourselves when we may be working or near the end of our working, and we're working we're working um, and we might find that we have to cut our hours. So we might even run into loss of income because we have to take proper care for our child. So then working becomes a problem. So the immediate drop in income can negatively impact our own ability to just take care of ourselves, much less take care of children. Then we move on to increased expenses. When people eat, they like to eat. They like to watch television. They need things, and therefore we have to keep up with them. Clothing costs, healthcare costs, going to school, managing doctor visits, medication, and potential emergencies. Those of us that are still working, childcare costs enter into the picture. And putting a child in childcare can be well over 1 week's salary or more. So that becomes a real impact and a real concern. And it sometimes just totally overwhelms us. So what are some of the things we can do about that? also just difficulty accessing. You figure, okay, I take care of this child, I'll be able to maybe get some food stamps or some kind of assistance. But if the child is not legally in your care, you can't access those things as easily as you think that you can. Many programs were designed with traditional parents in mind, leaving grandparents in confusing legal and bureaucratic gray area. Um, Paperwork and eligibility requirements can feel sometimes overwhelming, and a great deal of difficulty in accessing uh, financial resources. There are resources, and you might have to take some steps, but we'll give you more information about that as we go through our program. There is relief out there, but you are going to have to take some steps to make that happen. Possibly going into kinship care um, or getting actual guardianship or custody of your child. And I don't know if you've been in the situation, but sometimes this is enrolling a child in school. If you don't have legal custody, that becomes a problem. So there is paperwork that we're going to make sure that you do and so that you know of so that you can properly have your child enrolled in the things that they need. Sometimes obtaining legal custody can become a problem, and there's a great deal of complications that go along with that. The process is time consuming, it is emotionally draining, and sometimes potentially costly if lawyers get involved. So there's some kind of you find yourself in legal limbo with an additional layer of stress and financial strain already in a negative or straining situation. Often, if you have a savings and assets, you find yourself depleting these assets in order to stay afloat with you and your child. So we're going to talk about some strategies that you can take to make sure that you're not completely wiping yourself out, but that you and the child or children can survive. Sometimes with gaining a child or you child can actually throw you into poverty. And so you must really begin to know. I want to share a couple of statistics if I can bring them up here relatively quickly. Uh, You're saying that over 7 million grandparents are now taking care of their children. In 2021, 3.3% of adults aged 30 and over lived with their grandchildren. Over half of these adults were aged 30 to 64. Grandparents living with grandchildren were older in 2021 than in 2012. In 2012, 46.8% were aged 60 and over, which increased by 60% in that particular year. Grandparents were more likely to be responsible for their children for 5 years or longer in 2021. So there's some real and a growing situation with grandparents taking care of their grandchildren. It is becoming a real concern. So let's talk a little bit more. And we're trying to get the website back where the details were about grandparents. So just bear with me for a second. Of course, I should have put this on a separate board, but I did not. However, this, again, this is becoming